All right, welcome back to Lightroom Classic, and today we're going to take a look at a whole bunch of tips and tricks inside of the program. Now, some of these are going to be quite simple, and they're just going to be able to allow you to speed up your workflow. And some are going to be a little bit more complicated, and some you probably actually haven't heard of them. We're going to start through here. I've got a whole bunch to go through. The very first one that we have is what's called XMP. When you're in Lightroom, this is an actual raw processor. A raw image actually can't be changed. What happens is when you make an adjustment, it writes it either in the catalog or in the XMP file what you did. And then what you see is just a preview of that process. So today I'm going to show you how to make sure that you have that XMP setting on. Now, I think nowadays, because they've changed the way Lightroom Classic works, that by default it is on. But if you have an older version or you just want to check to make sure, we want to make sure that the XMP file is on. What this does is every time that you make that adjustment, it writes it in the catalog and the XMP file. If your catalog was to ever crash and go down, as long as you still have those XMP files, you're still going to have every edit and adjustment that you made to that file. If you see a file that says dog.cr2 or NEF, and then right below it, it has dog.xmp, you don't want to delete that XMP file. It's just a small text file. And that's what's storing your adjustments inside of Lightroom. And to find those, to make sure it's on, you're going to go into Lightroom Classic. And now I just want you to drop down to catalog settings. And then inside of catalog settings, we have this metadata. And then right here, it says automatically write change to XMP. You want to make sure that little tick is on. It's going to create an XMP whenever you make an adjustment, and then it's going to store that adjustment inside of that file. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is this toolbar. Now, a lot of times inside of Lightroom, people just lose track of where things are. They accidentally hit a button, something disappears, and they can't find it anymore. If you hit the letter T for Tom, it's going to either make the toolbar disappear or reappear. So that's that toolbar right here. Now right up here, notice I don't have all the modules set up. So to make a module appear or disappear, all you need to do is right click. Now, if you're on a Mac and you don't have a mouse that right clicks, you can hold Control and click. That's the same as a right click. But I'm actually on a Mac using a different type of mouse. So I'm going to right click and it's going to bring up this. If I want books or slideshows to come back, all I need to do is select it. If I want to remove it, all I got to do is tick it and it goes away. Now that process works the same for over here in the catalog. So we can either hide or show different folders. And if you go over to the develop module, you can do it in the basic panels and all these other panels right here. So we can even reconfigure the way these are set up. So if I right click and I hit custom develop panel, it's going to bring up my panel. So I can either turn stuff on or off or rearrange the order in which they appear. Then hit save, and then that will change the way that this functions. I'm just going to hit cancel because I'm not going to change it. Those are really cool little tricks. There's something that you use a lot and you hate having to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can even just move that up to a better spot. So we're going to go back into the library module, and we're just going to go over tagging real quick, just in case you don't know that. So the way tagging works is, and this is a great way to isolate when you have a whole bunch of photos. If you hit the number 1, it will automatically give this 1 star. So you're going to be looking right here. It's going to be giving this 1 star. 2 gives it 2 stars, 3 gives it 3 stars, 4 gives it 4 stars, 5 gives it 5 stars, 6 gives it the color red, 7 gives it the color yellow, 8 gives it the color green, 9 gives it the color blue, 0 removes all the stars, but you still have this color. So if you want to remove the color, all you need to do is come over here to this little box where the color is, click on that. You can either change the color or click none, and those will disappear. Another trick when you're doing this is you can use the letter X to reject an image. Let's say that this image right here is out of focus and we don't even want to save it. I'm going to go ahead and hit X, and that's going to reject that image. And then this one will give it a star. And this one, I'm going to go ahead and hit X to reject it. After we're done with this process, what I can do is I can come up here and isolate the rejected images. So we can come up to Edit, and we're going to come down here to Select by Flag and hit Rejected. And it's automatically selecting the rejected files. Now I can just hit Delete, all right? And then I can delete from disk or just remove those two files. And I'll just hit delete from disk, and then boom, those files are gone. It's a quick, easy way rather than just delete every time you come to an image. You can just do it all in one big fatal swoop right at the end. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give a couple of these some stars. Now, right now you can come in here, you can filter your different images right here. However, if you wanna also filter, you can come up here to Attribute, and it will give you different ways to filter there. So I can come up here and just click, and it's automatically gonna do that. So if you don't wanna use this, you can hit Attribute. It's gonna allow you to do flat, colored, any kind of things that you wanna do. So I come over here, hit Filters Off, and then it will remove everything, and we're back to where we were right in the beginning. And the last one here inside of the library panel is you'll notice that we have a quick develop panel. Now this stuff is great if you have a whole bunch of images that are exactly alike. So what happens is, let's say you want to build this for a gallery and you just want to quickly do some adjustment in this image. So we'll just make this image a little bit brighter. So you notice you've got a whole bunch of different options, but there are actually more options. If you hold down that Alt Option key, you're going to notice right here that clarity and vibrance are going to change to sharpening and saturation. So there are two more available, but you just need to hold down that key to get that to pop up. All right, what we're going to do here is we'll go ahead and click on this image, and we're going to switch on over to the develop module. I'm going to make a large adjustment here so we can see that adjustment. Now, one of the things that you're doing as you're adjusting photos is sometimes you want to see the before and after. All you need to do is hit the letter Y, and that's going to give you a before and after look of your images. So this is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like after. Now, obviously I toned this so it looks horrible, but we're able to see the before and after of what we did. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Y again, and we're just going to go ahead and reset that so it's back to where it was. We're just going to make a series of some adjustments here just so we can see. We're going to hit that Y. Now we can see this is our before, this is our after. But if we close the presets here and we come to history, I can go back at any time and apply adjustments. So we can see right here, the first thing I did was change the exposure. If I want to see this with that exposure adjustment, I can just drag this over here, and it's going to show me the original image with the exposure, but not with the highlights or the black clipping. I can look at this and say, yeah, that looks better, or yeah, this looks better. And just like if I want to do the black clipping, I can slide that over. It's going to apply that to that first image. It gives you more options when trying to see what you've done as you're editing an image inside of Lightroom. So I'm going to come down here and just get this image. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take the saturation and remove this just so we can see. Now, just like we did the Y, we can also do a before and after, but not in a split view. If you come up to the keyboard and go to the letter P, and then you have the two brackets, and then right there is your little backslash key. If you hit backslash, it's going to show you before. Notice right up here, it's telling you before. You hit it again, that's after. Before, after. All right, another little trick that we have here. If you go over your image and you right click, it's going to bring up a whole bunch of different options without having to go up here into this file. So we can toggle over anything that we see here and apply it inside of the develop module by simply just right clicking on top of the image. Next thing we're going to take a look at is, by default, Photoshop makes these menus very small. Now, when you're moving this, it's a little short adjustment. If you want to make that larger, you can come over here to this bar, and you'll notice that my cursor will change from the pointer to this arrow. Now, if I click and drag that, I can make this quite a bit larger. So now I have a much longer slider to adjust the images. Here, this little adjustment is not going to adjust the image as much as if I did the same amount of movement when this is really small. Now you can come over here and you can adjust these and hide that. Just like making this larger or smaller, a lot of times, maybe at this point, I'm not actually using these menus anymore. I can click on this arrow right here, and that's going to hide that menu and give me more editing space. I can come over here, click on this one. It's going to hide that, show that. Down here, hide that, show that. Now, even though it's hiding it, if you go back down and hover, it's going to pop up. So if I go over here, it's going to hover and pop up. So that's a different option to get your menus to hide and show. We're just going to make everything show back up for right now. Next trick here is what's called lights out. So if you hit the letter L, what that's going to do is darken out everything but your image. So what you're seeing is just this image. It's called lights out. It's kind of hiding this window and just showing your image, so it's a little bit cleaner. And that's called lights out. All right, the next thing that we have here, it's just something that people maybe have forgotten about. If you want to reset something, you can always come down here and reset everything. However, sometimes you just want to reset one item. All you need to do is go to that one item, double click, and it will reset that image. In conjunction with that, if you go to the brush, and we'll make some crazy adjustments here, and we have all this stuff. Now, just like before, we can individually double click to reset something, or you could just come up here to Effect and double click Effect and it will reset everything. You can also hit the Alt key and just get reset and it will do it that way. So we can come up here, we can hit double click Effect, that will reset it, or you can hold the Alt and that will bring up reset, and that allows you to set everything back at 0. Now, a lot of times inside the adjustment brush, you come and you make an adjustment, but it's not very strong and you have a difficult time telling where you've put that different adjustment. If you want to see where your adjustment is taking place and make sure that you covered everything, you can hit the letter O for quick mask. So you can see right there, I missed a spot. So I can come in here and paint this in. So anywhere you see red, it's going to be applying the adjustment. Now I can come in here, I can also tell that I've kind of got a halo and I need to make a better selection inside of this area. So I'm going to go ahead and hit O again. That's going to turn off quick mask. The next trick here is if we click on this gradient tool right here, this is going to allow us to create an adjustment, but as a gradient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want the gradient to start here and I want it to end right here at the horizon line. Now I'm going to make this really dark so we can see what's happening. Gradient is up here, it's affecting it a lot, and then it's slowly dissipating. So it's not affecting it that much down here, and then nothing is being applied here as I adjust this. So it's gradating that adjustment. Now the problem here is it's also affecting this area of the building. Now we don't want it to happen here, we just want it to apply to the sky. We can actually take that out with this brush setting. So I can come over here to the brush. Now, if you scroll down to the brush, you'll notice there's also something called erase. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. So I'm going to show you another little trick here. So to get the erase brush, you don't actually need to scroll down here and click on the erase, which you could do. You can also hold that Alt Option. Now I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger by holding that, and you'll notice right in the center of this, plus means add, but when I hold Alt Option, it's saying minus or subtract. It's now, as I paint this over the area where I don't want this effect to be applied to, it's removing that. So if I scroll back up here and I make this really dark, you'll see it's affecting here, 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 but it's not affecting this area. So I can hit 0. We can see there's that mask. I didn't do it perfectly, but that's okay. The brush will allow you to paint out. And you can also come over here to the radial adjustment and do that. And this one here, it also has the ability to use a brush to remove it from a specific area. The next thing we're going to go into is the crop tool. Now you can either come over here and click on this or hit the letter R to bring up your crop tool. Now, if you notice this image, it's not level. So this is higher here and going lower here. Now we can always come out here and manually turn and adjust this image, but we also have this little angle right here. So what I can do is I can click on this angle and I can draw a line where I want it to make it level. I can say right here, I'm going to start here. I'm going to drag this to this other point and then let go. And you can see that Lightroom automatically adjusts that image to make this level. Now you can do the same thing for something vertical. Next thing inside of the crop menu, if you hold the Alt Option key and you drag from any corner, what you're going to see is it actually scales from the center. Instead of having to kind of come here and then come here to do this, all you need to do is we'll just hit escape. We'll click on the crop tool. Now to crop from the center, I can hold Alt Option and that's going to drag from the center. So it's even on all sides. So the next little trick is inside this gradient tool again. So we'll click that gradient and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to drag this gradient. So you'll notice that the brightness, because we've made the adjustment already, starts here and then gradates this way. However, if we decide that we want this to be over here, all you need to do is hold the shift, come over to this far line, hold the shift, drag it, and now you can flip that back and then we can draw the gradient back in the other way. You can hold shift to flip your gradient to the other direction. All right, for the next tool, what we're going to do here is I'm going to go into the brush tool. Now I'm going to double click effect to reset everything at 0. I'm going to make a big giant adjustment. So we're going to make something really bright. Now to come in here and try to paint and make a perfectly straight line while holding a mouse can be very difficult. So you can use this cool little trick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click once here with my mouse and you'll notice it brighten that area. And then I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to hold the shift key and click again, and it's going to make a perfectly straight line. What I'll do here so you can see this is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to take the feather off of my adjustment. And we'll make this a little bit smaller. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come up to this very top point. I'm going to click once, hold down shift, and then I do it again. You notice it made a perfectly straight line. I could come over here and do the same thing. Click once, go down here, hold shift, click again, and then here we could just do it to make sure that we got everything. Holding shift and clicking in two different points gives you an endpoint and it allows you to create a perfectly straight line. So what I'm going to do is come up, we'll just use the range filter in this one. So we're going to come in here and have this range filter. And so we'll apply it right here. Right now it's applying this filter and blending stuff out. Now I've got a big adjustment. The reason these big adjustments are here because it makes it easy to see. Now, if you scroll down, and this filter works for both the radial and the gradient. I'm just using the radial, so it's something different. If you scroll down here, first of all, we can invert this to make it the opposite, but we can also use something called a range mask. If I click the range mask and turn it off, now we can affect the color or the luminance. So the color would be the color of the image and the luminance would be the brightness of the image. What we have is a little range slider. So let's say I wanted to brighten an area, but I didn't want to affect the blacks. I just wanted to affect the highlights. We can come in here and we can slide this range slider. And this is just like the blend if inside of Photoshop. Or if I didn't want it to affect the highlights, just the shadow areas, I can do this. What we're going to do is we're going to slide this out of the black. And then down here we have smoothness. And this is kind of feathering the effect, so it's not so strong. If we go this way, it's going to be a smoother transition. And this way, it's going to be a harsher transition between the areas. And you can do this any way that you want. You have this constant adjustment, and that will let you allow this image to affect certain areas. So if I come here to this image and we reset it, and this time we'll just use the gradient filter and I'll slide this down. We'll say, yeah, we want to brighten areas, but notice right here, this highlight, we don't actually want to brighten that. We just wanted to open up the shadow areas here in the building. Once again, we can go to the range mask, turn on the luminance because we want to affect the brightness. And then what we can do is we can take it out of the highlights, and now it's just affecting the shadow areas instead of both the highlights and the shadows. So that is the range mask inside of the gradient and the radial filters. And it's also inside of the brush filter that you have the range mask available to you. All right, our next trick is going to be down here in split toning. So we're going to go ahead, open up that split toning panel. Right now, the split toning saturation is very low on both of these. Now you can come in here and pick your colors, or you can slide this slider. But because the saturation is so low, as you slide these, it can be a little bit difficult to see what the actual color is that you're picking. If you hold the Alt Option button and slide the sliders, it's giving you that color at 100% saturation. So you can slide this and say, hey, that's the color I want. And then when you let go, we have that color. It's selected that color, but you're not seeing it 100% anymore. Then you can slide this and change that percentage. Same thing if you want to come down here. If you slide this, a little difficult to see the color. Hold that Alt Option though and do it. It's going to show you that color at 100%. You can easily pick the color that you want, and bam, just like that, you can split tone your image. Since we're on this image and we're close to this panel, we're going to slide down here to sharpening, and this is another Alt Option toggle. Now I'm saying Alt Option because on my keyboard, the Alt and the Option are the same key. However, on a PC, these are usually different keys, and I think it is the Option key, but I'm not positive that you're going to hit to do this. So it's either the Alt or the Option. If you're on a PC, go ahead and try either the Alt or Option, and you should get this effect. So normally, when we want to sharpen the image, we can just slide this little toggle, and that works great. However, you can't really see what you're doing too well. If you hold the Alt Option and you slide this, now it's showing you what the effect is looking like. Now, this isn't too helpful, but if you come down here to radius and slide this, you'll notice this is showing you the specific areas in the radius that are getting sharpened. Now, this would be way too much, so don't do a radius this high. But as we slide this, we're showing how much of the area that gets affected. So what this is showing us is the detail in the area and how much sharpening is getting sharpened in that detail area. So let's say we want it to be like this. Then I can come down here in the detail and I can slide that and see that effect. A little bit harder to see. And then we can come down here into masking, where it's going to be applying it to certain areas and not to other areas. So we can slide that masking. And the bam, just like that, we have a better idea of sharpening inside of Lightroom. And the last and final trick that we have here today is going to be how to use the opacity slider that you actually can find or see inside of Lightroom Classic. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the brush, and you can use this for a variety of different options right here. All you needed to do is make a point. So what I'm going to do is we're going to come in here and make a series of adjustments. So now that I've made all these crazy adjustments, we're just going to come in here and apply this to a specific area. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's too much. Now I could come in here and individually move each one of these sliders till I get it exactly where I want. Or I can come in here and move my cursor. You notice this is the point where I started. When it switches to that little hand, if you hold the Alt Option, notice you get these little left and right arrows. Now what I want you to watch is when I do this, watch all these adjustments over here. They're all going to move at the same time. So I'm going to go over to the point with it to get the hand. So I'm going to get the hand. I'm going to hold my Alt Option. I'm going to click and hold with my mouse and drag left. And you can see it's reducing those. And if I go right, it's increasing those points. I'm able to control the opacity of this effect. So I can dial in less and less and less by dragging to the left. That is how you get an opacity slider inside of Lightroom Classic. Hopefully you've enjoyed these tips and tricks. And hey, if you have any tips and tricks that we didn't cover here, leave those in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.